Starting off this countdown, we have the Den of Snakes. Some abandoned locations are more dangerous than others. You really don't know what you're getting into when you enter them. Maybe the floors will just give in under your feet. Or in this case, maybe you'll be greeted by some slithery friends. A group of urban explorers visited an abandoned mansion in their town, and when they got inside, they found a family of snakes living underneath the couch. Even if they were harmless, I don't want those things lurking anywhere near me, no thank you. But it could have been worse. Could have been a den of poisonous snakes. Moving on to number 9, we have the Somewhere House. A pretty famous abandoned home for urban explorers is called the Somewhere House. It was named by the person who discovered it. Obviously, he didn't want to expose the location of the house, so he just titled it Somewhere. Now it's been named the Mid-Century Time Capsule House, because if you enter this house, you feel like you've been transported back in time to the 1960s and 70s. The style and decor of the house reflects those time periods. So back in 2015, the urban explorer Freaktography was searching this house when he came across a safe in one of the rooms. Hoping to find money or valuables, he opened it up. But what he found scared the crap out of him. In the safe was a note that read, "Danger, MK1 hand grenade inside. This is not a joke. Bob Jr." And sure enough, the grenade was still there. The explorer then carefully closed the lid and got the heck out of there. Definitely don't want to risk setting that baby off. I just want to know why there was a grenade in the safe in the first place, and who is Bob Jr.? In our 8th spot, we have the Well. Some fancy mansions have a full bar in their basements. Others have a nice home movie theater. But this old abandoned house had something quite different in their basement. A well. Now, in pre-1940 homes, you may find this to be a thing, but there was something off about this well. For starters, the well was blocked off by a trap door, as if someone was thrown down there and then the well was sealed off so they couldn't get out, or so that visitors couldn't hear their screams for help. Or it was blocked off so that Pennywise can't crawl back out of there. In our 7th spot, we have The Spirit Lives. Back in 2015, YouTuber and urban explorer Freaktography was exploring abandoned homes in Ontario. While in southwestern Ontario, he found a mansion with some very unsettling things. So in this house, he found an old box with the words "The Spirit Lives" written on it. Inside of it were dozens of photos of an old dead woman lying in her casket. Now, I know that back in the day it was a tradition to send loved ones photos of the dead in their caskets if they couldn't attend the funeral, but those photos are just so unnerving. Also in the box were condolence cards and programs from the funeral service. I mean, what makes it so creepy is how the box was labeled "The Spirit Lives." Makes it seem like if you open this box, then her soul is just going to escape. Making our way down the list, number 6, we have the Mannequin. So, not all abandoned places are going to be terrifying, but some people, with nothing else better to do, get a little creative and have a little fun at these abandoned locations. And by this, I mean purposely setting up the house to terrify its next visitors. So in one abandoned mansion, an explorer found a mannequin hanging from the ceiling by a rope around its neck. Nearby was a ladder lying on the ground, making it look like the dirty old mannequin committed suicide. Yeah, that's enough to freak anyone out. Pretty creative though, I'm not gonna lie. Mannequins are creepy enough on their own, but this person just turned the creep factor to the extreme. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the Tiger. A man in Houston went inside an abandoned home when he came across a frickin' tiger. This is reminding me of that scene from The Hangover. Apparently this guy wandered into the house to smoke some weed, but upon doing so, he found a tiger in the garage. When he called the police had to make sure that the dude wasn't just hallucinating from being high as a kite. But he was right, there was a tiger in the garage along with several packages of meat. Maybe Joe was just chilling out there with the tiger for a few days. Well, police ended up tranquilizing the tiger and took it to an animal shelter. They still don't know whose tiger it is and what it was doing in an abandoned house in the first place. Coming in at number 4, we have the Bunker. If you were able to design your own mansion, what would you want it to have? Maybe an indoor swimming pool or a slide from the top floor to the main floor? I personally would want a bunch of secret rooms and passageways. That would be so cool. Now I ask because this next abandoned mansion had a secret bunker in the basement. Inside they found a supply of food, water, and equipment. But it looked as if whoever was there left in a hurry and just grabbed as much supplies as they could. Why did they have to flee? What happened to them? And where did they disappear to? Someone answer my questions. In our third spot, we have these skeletons. There's a saying about people having skeletons in their closet, but of course this is just an idiom, meaning maybe they've done something bad in their past that they are ashamed of and keep hidden from others. But in this next case, this abandoned mansion literally had skeletons in its closet. So upstairs in the master bedroom, an urban explorer came across a chest in the closet. Thinking it's like a pirate treasure chest, he opened it, only to find a large assortment of bones. But there wasn't just one chest, there were multiple, all filled with bones. Thinking that the previous owner was some sort of serial killer, he fled the scene of the crime. A couple days later, he returned to the same spot with a group of his friends, but this time the boxes of bones were gone. Okay, that's really creepy. Like, whose bones are those? Are they human or are they animal bones? And where did they disappear to? In our second spot, we have the Resident. A group of urban explorers decided to go check out an abandoned mansion in their town. The mansion was badly vandalized and as creepy as they expected it to be. However, after looking around the house for quite some time, they saw someone run by one of the doors. Thinking that someone was living in the old abandoned mansion, they fled. However, when reviewing some photos and videos that they took of the mansion, they realized that the person living there wasn't alive. No, it was a ghost. In one of the photos you could see a dark figure lurking at that same doorway. After seeing that, they all agreed to never go back to that mansion ever again. It's not worth pissing off a ghost and getting possessed by it. And in our number one spot, we have the Doctor's Mansion. Brian Sansevero, urban explorer and photographer, ended up finding an abandoned mansion that once belonged to a wealthy doctor. But this doctor didn't work at a hospital. No, he worked out of his house. In fact, sections of his house were converted into a waiting room, examination room, and procedure room for his patients, meaning people probably ended up dying in his very own home. That's not even the creepy part. When you first walked into the house, you are greeted by a skinned wolf carpet. Then in the medical rooms there are bottles of mysterious liquids, old medicine, and creepy medical tools. I mean, the home is quite beautiful, minus the creepy hospital rooms it has. Starting off this countdown, we have the diseased Barbies. Posted on Reddit by the user Anicha Rash, she shares a photo of some horrifying dolls found in an abandoned house. The dolls are of the lovers Barbie and Ken. Except the poor couple are covered in mold. It makes them look pretty terrifying. They could use a little TLC. Barbie is seen wearing a white nightgown and her poor face is covered in mold, making her almost unrecognizable. Then you have Ken, who is shirtless and pantless, and unfortunately both his legs are covered in mold. But his ripped bod remains spotless. Even the mold is intimidated by his rock hard abs. But honestly, the two look terrifying, like something you would see creepy possessed girls playing with in horror movies. In our ninth spot, we have the Hidden Room. This story was posted on Reddit by the user mdicky3. About 2 years ago, his grandparents bought an old mansion. When he arrived there for the first time, he did what anyone else would do and went exploring. Specifically, he wanted to find secret passageways. Honestly, sounds like me. I would love to go on an adventure trying to find secret passageways. Well, he was upstairs checking out an old bookcase built into a wall when he noticed a small latch on the bookcase. Of course, when he pulled on the latch, it opened up to reveal a hidden room. Classic, something right out of a Scooby-Doo cartoon. In this space, they found a tiny room with a cot, some clothes, and some dishes. He told his parents what he found, but they assumed it was just an old servant's quarters. Well, they were wrong. Turns out that someone had actually been living in the house and tried to break back in that night. Ever heard of squatters' rights? it probably technically is his property now, depends on how long he was in that room for. In our 8th spot we have Lennox Castle. The Lennox Castle, located in Scotland, was built in 1812 for John Lennox Kincaid, the distant relative of some well-known Earls of Lennox. It's said that this mansion, often referred to as a castle, was his home for quite some time. Then in 1927 it was converted into an asylum for the mentally ill. A couple years later, during World War II, it was turned into a hospital. As a result, the mentally ill patients were transferred to another area in the building. But this didn't go too well. Apparently, there would be a lot of fights between patients. In fact, during one fight, a lot of the staff and patients ran from the hospital. The patients that didn't escape were then locked inside. The hospital was vacated by the 1980s, and in 2002 it was abandoned completely. Now it's said that if you enter the mansion and go to the area where the patients were kept, you'll be able to see blood and scratch marks all along the walls from them fighting and trying to escape. Coming in at number 7, we have the creepy statues. Posted on Reddit by the user sketch_crush, they described a massive mansion that was for sale in their area. Apparently it was built about 100 years ago and the original owner killed himself in it. Now it's believed to be haunted by his soul. After that incident, the mansion was vacant for years. Finally, it's back on the market. Now, what's creepy about this mansion, besides its already terrifying history, is the fact that there are large amounts of creepy statues and stone carvings in and around the house. Like on the upper half of the mansion, a window is replaced by a statue of a creepy old man in a cloak. That just makes the home that much more terrifying. But if it hasn't sold already, go check it out and you can buy it. It could be yours. Moving on to number 6, we have the Witch's Mansion. Seth Lawless, photographer and explorer, went on a trip exploring a bunch of supposedly haunted abandoned mansions. One he came across was this one in Milan, Ohio. He claims that this mansion is where local witches would practice their craft. To make things creepier, it's said that the original owner of the mansion, a witch herself, was buried right underneath the front porch. First off, whenever I hear the word witch, I think of a green-skinned old lady with a black hat and a broomstick. Am I the only one? But no, not all witches are evil, so maybe it was a friendly witch casting nice spells, not one that on the strike of midnight will rise up out of her grave from under the porch. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the Hooley Mansion. This is another mansion that was explored by Seth Lawless. This mansion, located in Texas, used to be a bed and breakfast in the 70s, but it's also apparently where numerous strange deaths have occurred. Now, here's the thing. If you Google this mansion, nothing turns up. We don't know the location of this house or anything. The only photos of it are the ones that Lawless has taken. Either he made up the name and story, or the identity and real name of the house are kept a secret to prevent looters and vandals. But it's more fun to think that it's a real haunted house where you'll die if you stay the night. Coming in at number 4, we have the Locked Away Mansion. A pair of urban explorers were out touring an abandoned mansion when they came across something very, very strange and creepy. All of the bedroom doors locked from the outside, and the windows were bolted from the outside. So if someone wanted to, they could lock you in that room and you would have no way to escape. Not only that, but some of the doors had deep scratches on it, as if someone was clawing at the door trying to escape. So I don't know what went on in that house. I lied, I do. It's probably someone would lock their victims in the rooms and then torture them. Moving on to number 3, we have the crawl space. Upon moving into a new mansion with her kids, they found a crawl space in one of the bedrooms. But that's not the scary thing. In the crawl space, they found a box containing old Ken dolls. But these Ken dolls had their hands melted together and razor blades sticking out of their arms. So either the previous family had a child who is growing up to be a killer, or some sicko made these dolls for kids to play with. Or it's Sid's house from Toy Story. Either way, I don't want to meet the person that made those dolls. In our 2nd spot, we have Chateau Miranda. This mansion was built in 1866 for the family Lyda Kirk Beaufort. They lived at this home until World War II. Then it housed sick and orphan children until 1980, which is when it became abandoned. According to local urban explorers, they found a creepy room in the mansion filled with old and dirty children's toys, like dolls, balls, and even a jack-in-the-box that was rusty but still worked. In one of the hallways, there was also an abandoned tricycle right smack in the middle of it. Yeah, that's a sure sign to leave the mansion. We don't need no shining jigsaw stuff going down with that thing. Then it said that the landlord burnt down the mansion in 2017. Why? Probably because it was haunted. And in our number 1 spot, we have Cheonei No 81. Completed in 1910, the Cheonei No 81 mansion was originally built as a church for British residents in Beijing. Then in 1949, it was home to a high-ranked official and his wife. But he ended up leaving her and fleeing to Taiwan. As a result, the grief-struck woman hung herself from the rafters of the mansion. Now it's believed that her spirit haunts the abandoned home. Apparently, some people moved into the house a while later and then fled a few days later, terrified. There have also been stories of unexplainable disappearances connected to the house. Like the time 3 construction workers working on a nearby house got drunk and decided to break into the mansion. They were never seen or heard from again. It's also said that during summers, it's always shockingly cold around the mansion. Starting off this countdown, we have the Selma Mansion. This 20-room mansion was constructed back in 1902 and was known for hosting extravagant balls and dinner parties. Now it's known for being home to multiple ghosts. The home was originally owned by a man named Elijah Brokenborough. Honestly, that sounds like a name of someone who would own a mansion. Elijah Brokenborough. He then gave the property to his daughter, who lived in the mansion until she died in 1970. Then the house kept getting passed around until it was abandoned in the early 2000s. Now the home has been ransacked. The windows are all broken, the inside is vandalized, but be careful if you do dare to trespass. You may come in contact with a couple of ghosts who are said to roam the rooms and corridors at night. In our 9th spot, we have the Hot Mansion. Much about the history of this house remains a secret. However, it's rumored that the home was a brothel back in the 1940s. Years later, a number of dead bodies were found in the mansion's basement. The torsos and chests of the victims had perfect round circles on them. However, we don't really know if that is the truth. Other people claim that a man named Henry Glover owned the house back in 1892. However, he died in the house the morning after just moving in. To this day, it remains a very mysterious and creepy house. Moving on at number 8, we have the Temple Street Mansion. Located in East Cleveland, this mansion located on Temple Street is the home to numerous tragedies. In 1942, it said that 3 priests were found murdered in the mansion. Then in 2013, the mansion was the dumping ground of a serial killer. 3 women were found dead in the house, wrapped in plastic bags. Now it's said that it's haunted by several spirits. In fact, neighbors from across the street have seen and heard paranormal activity coming from the house. In our 7th spot, we have the Mud House Mansion. Located in Fairfield County, Ohio, this mansion remains a huge mystery. Not a lot of people know the history of this house. It's thought that it was built in the 1840s, 50s, 70s, or the 1900s. No one truly knows. Because of the lack of history surrounding this mansion, people have made up their own. Legend goes that this was the original home of Bloody Mary, who still haunts the place. Whereas others believe that government officials used the house to hide captives after the Civil War. But apparently, one managed to escape and murdered the official and his family. The house was demolished in 2015 after not being occupied since the 1930s. Making our way down the list, number 6, we have the John List House. This 19-room mansion located in New Jersey is another mansion filled with tragedies. In November of 1971, the owner, John List, killed his entire family. He then gathered all of their bodies, except his mother's, and lined them up in the ballroom. He turned on the radio to a religious station, turned on all the lights, cut his face out from the family photos, and then fled. The bodies weren't discovered until a month later, after friends and family were wondering where they were. As for John List, well, he fled to Denver and changed his name. However, he was caught and arrested in 1989. But he never admitted to the crimes. The home remained abandoned for years until an arsonist burnt it down in 1974. As a result, a new identical mansion was built in the exact spot. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the Ohio Mystery Mansion. Unlike the other mansions, this home's identity was never mentioned. It was explored by the well-known American photographer Seth Lawless. He claims that when he entered the mansion, he saw eerie fresh footprints leading into the house. Not only that, but the bathroom in the house had blood on the walls. In the bathtub, he found a dead dog. He also heard scratching noises and strange whispers coming from one of the rooms. To make things worse, in one of the rooms, there was a display of mannequin heads and metal tools. That's weird interior decorating. The neighbor claims to hear noises coming from the house all the time. But honestly, I just wish we knew more about this house and its history. Coming in at number 4, we have Villa de Vecchi. Another creepy mansion with an even creepier backstory. The Villa de Vecchi in Italy, owned by Count Felix de Vecchi, was commissioned to be built in the 19th century. However, the architect died a year before he completed the project, which put a supposed curse on the property. Shortly after the family moved in, Count Felix discovered that his wife had been murdered. As a result, he ended up taking his own life. The villa was then passed to his brother, who lived there until World War II. It's been vacant since 1960. The spookiest part? In 2002, an avalanche wiped out all the houses in the area, except this one. Moving on at number 3, we have the Halcyon Hall. Sorry, Halcyon Hall. Located in Millbrook, New York, the mansion was first built as a hotel in the 1890s. From there, it was transformed into an all-girls school before being shut down in 1978. Now, this mansion is said to be home to multiple ghosts. Once, a carpenter working there said they heard moans and cries coming from the basement. Other people said a ghost of a woman would visit them in their sleep. The 1960s was when the most paranormal activity happened. Objects would disappear only to reappear later on, or would move on their own. Residents would also often see a bald, chubby man in a brown suit wandering around and sitting in their chairs. In our second spot, we have the Liu family mansion. Located in Taiwan, the Liu family mansion was built in 1929 for a businessman and his family of 8. However, in the 1950s, the family abruptly fled from their home. The reason for leaving was unclear. However, some think it's because the house is haunted. Apparently, back in the day, the mansion's maid fell in love with the rich owner. They were having an affair, and when the secret got out, she drowned herself in the well. Now it's said that bad luck will follow any of the new residents of the house. Whereas other people think that the property is haunted by Japanese soldiers who died in battles on the grounds. And in our number 1 spot, we have the Franklin Castle. The Franklin Castle, otherwise known as the Tiedemann House, is a mansion located in Cleveland, Ohio. Built between 1881 to 1883, this mansion was first home to Hans Tiedemann, his wife, and kids. This mansion has 4 stories, more than 20 rooms, and 80 windows. That just called me broke. However, this mansion is said to be one of the most haunted houses in the US. Apparently, a bunch of murders have occurred in this house. Slowly, Tiedemann's family started to pass away, and people thought that he was behind their death. In 1968, the mansion was sold to James Romano and his family. That's when the hauntings began. The Romano family reported several encounters with ghosts. They even attempted exorcisms and had a ghost hunting group investigate the property. In 1975, human bones were found in the closet. It's thought that maybe they were planted there as a publicity stunt, but we still don't know. One thing that's for sure is that this house is certainly haunted.